Dr. Han Jiwoo stared at her computer screen in the quiet lab. It was past midnight at the Seoul Advanced Research Institute, and she was the only one still working. The numbers on her screen didn't make sense, but that's what made them exciting. "This can't be right," she said to herself, pushing her glasses back up her nose. She had been studying black holes for the past 5 years, but these calculations showed something different. The gravitational readings suggested a hole in space, but it wasn't pulling things in like a black hole. Instead, it seemed to be creating a tunnel. She reached for her phone to call her friend and colleague, Dr. Lee Do-hyun. Even though it was late, she knew he would want to see this. Do-hyun was in charge of the Institute's Deep Space Monitoring Program. "Do-hyun, are you awake?" she asked when he answered. "I am now," he said, his voice sleepy but friendly. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, but I need you to check something. Can you look at the gravitational readings from the Sagittarius constellation over the past week?" She heard typing on the other end as Do-hyun accessed his computer from home. There was a long pause, then a sharp intake of breath. "Ji-woo, are you seeing what I'm seeing?" "If you're seeing a stable gravitational anomaly that doesn't act like a black hole, then yes," she said, getting more excited. "The math suggests it's maintaining its own structure. It's not collapsing in on itself." "That's impossible," Do-hyun said, but she could hear the excitement in his voice too. Unless it's a wormhole," they both said at the same time. The next morning, the lab was buzzing with activity. Ji-woo and Do-hyun showed their findings to the Institute's director. More scientists joined them, checking and double-checking their calculations. Nobody could find any mistakes. "Look at this pattern," Ji-woo said, pointing to a graph on the main screen. "It's too regular to be natural. The energy signature maintains itself in a perfect cycle. Black holes don't do that." One of the younger scientists spoke up. "But Dr. Han, stable wormholes are impossible. The gravitational forces should tear them apart." Jae-woo smiled. "That's what we thought. But look here." She pulled up another screen showing her quantum calculations. "These equations show that something is keeping the wormhole open. It's like, imagine a tunnel through a mountain. Without support beams, the tunnel would collapse. But something is acting as support beams for this cosmic tunnel." The news spread quickly through the scientific community. Within days, space agencies from around the world were contacting the Institute. They all wanted to know more about the discovery that could change humanity's understanding of space travel. A month later, Ji-woo stood in front of a room full of reporters. Camera flashes went off as she explained their findings in simple terms. "We believe we found a stable wormhole, about 50 light-years from Earth. It's like a shortcut through space. Imagine folding a piece of paper and pushing a pencil through it. That's similar to how a wormhole connects 2 points in space." After the press conference, Do-hyun found her in her lab. She was looking at new data from their deep space monitors. "You know what this means, right?" he asked. "If we're correct, this isn't just a natural phenomenon. Something or someone made this wormhole." Jae-woo nodded slowly. "And they made it stable enough to last. The question is, why? And are they still out there?" She looked out the window at the night sky. Somewhere up there, an impossible tunnel through space was waiting to be explored, and perhaps waiting to be explained. The discovery that had started with some unusual numbers on her computer screen was about to change everything humanity thought they knew about space, time, and their place in the universe. Little did Ji-woo know that this was just the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure. 3 months after Dr. Han Ji-woo's discovery, the world's space agencies came together in a way they never had before. The Global Space Coalition was formed, and their first major project was named Project Gateway. Their goal was simple but ambitious: to study and possibly travel through the stable wormhole. Commander Kim Yoo-jin sat at the head of a large conference table in the coalition's new headquarters in Seoul. She looked at the group of experts gathered before her. These were the best minds from different countries, all chosen for their skills and experience. We have two main challenges, Commander Kim said, pointing to the screen behind her. First, we need to build a ship that can withstand the gravitational forces near the wormhole. Second, we need to find a way to protect the crew if we attempt passage. Engineer Park Min-ho raised his hand. He was young for his position, but his work in quantum shielding technology had earned him worldwide respect. I think I might have a solution for both problems, he said, standing up to share his ideas. Park walked to the front of the room and pulled up his designs on the main screen. Traditional shields won't work near a wormhole. But what if we could create a bubble of quantum-stabilized space around the ship? He showed them a diagram of his proposed shield design. Dr. Han Ji-woo leaned forward in her chair. You want to use the same principle that's keeping the wormhole stable? She asked, suddenly understanding where Park was going with his idea. Exactly, Park said with a smile. Dr. Han's calculations showed that something is supporting the wormhole's structure. If we can copy that effect on a smaller scale, we could protect a ship. Commander Kim nodded slowly. How long would it take to build a prototype? 6 months for a small test vehicle, Park answered. We can call it Prometheus. The next few months were filled with intense work. The coalition built a new facility just for constructing the prototype ship. Engineers and scientists worked day and night, testing and improving Park's quantum shield design. Dr. Han worked closely with Park, helping him match his shield technology to the wormhole's energy patterns. They often stayed late in the lab, running simulations and adjusting calculations. Look at this, Dr. Han said one evening, showing Park her latest data. The wormhole's support structure isn't random. It pulses in a regular pattern, like a heartbeat. Park studied the readings. Then we should make our shield pulse the same way, he said. It might help us sync with the wormhole's natural frequency. The first test of the Prometheus prototype came 4 months into the project. It was a small, unmanned vessel about the size of a car. The team gathered in the control room to watch as the ship activated its quantum shield. Shield power at 25%, Park announced, watching the readings carefully. 50%, 75%. When the shield reached full power, everyone in the room held their breath. The air around the prototype ship seemed to ripple, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. It's working, Commander Kim said quietly. The shield is stable. Dr. Han checked her instruments. The quantum field matches the wormhole's pattern perfectly. Min-ho, you did it. But their excitement was interrupted by an urgent call from Dr. Lee Do-hyun at the Space Monitoring Station. Commander Kim, you need to see this, he said, his voice tense. We're picking up new signals from the wormhole. It's like it's responding to our shield test. The room fell silent. Commander Kim looked at Dr. Han, then at Park. Their test hadn't just proven their technology worked. It had apparently caught someone's attention. Well, Commander Kim said, standing up straight, it seems we're not just building a ship anymore. We're preparing for first contact. The prototype Prometheus sat quietly in its test chamber, its quantum shield shimming slightly, while somewhere 50 light-years away, an ancient wormhole pulsed with new energy, waiting for humanity's next move. The control room of Project Gateway was filled with tension as the team prepared to launch their first probe into space. It had been 2 weeks since their quantum shield test had triggered a response from the wormhole, and now they were ready to learn more. Dr. Han Ji-woo checked the probe's systems one final time. All sensors are working perfectly, she reported to Commander Kim Yoo-jin. The quantum shield is synchronized with the wormhole's frequency. Launch in 3 minutes, announced Engineer Park Min-ho from his station. He had barely slept while preparing for this moment, making sure every detail was perfect. The probe, named Pioneer, was small but packed with advanced sensors. Its main job was to get close to the wormhole and send back data. No one expected what would happen next. As Pioneer approached the wormhole, its sensors began picking up unusual patterns. Dr. Han stared at her screen, checking the numbers again and again. Commander, she called out, These readings, they're not random. They follow a clear mathematical pattern. Commander Kim moved to look at Dr. Han's screen. What does that mean? It means someone designed this wormhole, Dr. Han explained. And they're using mathematics to communicate. The patterns coming from the wormhole were complex but beautiful in their simplicity. They started with basic mathematical concepts, the value of pi, the golden ratio, prime numbers, then grew more complex. The team worked day and night to understand the message. On the third day, Dr. Han made a breakthrough. Look at this sequence, she said, pointing to a repeating pattern. It's not just math anymore. It's language, their language. They're teaching us how to talk to them. Engineer Park had an idea. If we can understand their language, maybe we can send a message back. He modified the probe's quantum shield to pulse in specific patterns, copying the mathematical language they had learned. The response was immediate. New data flooded their computers, but this time it was different. The patterns transformed into clear images and text that their computers could understand. The message was simple but profound. We are the guardians. We maintain the paths between stars. We have waited long for others to understand our work. The room fell silent as everyone processed what they were seeing. Humanity had just made first contact with an advanced civilization. More messages followed. The Guardians explained that they had built a network of wormholes throughout the galaxy. These cosmic corridors allowed for safe travel between distant stars. They had been watching and waiting for other civilizations to discover how to properly interact with their network. But then came a message that changed everything. Warning: network stability compromised. Assistance required. Danger. Commander Kim called an emergency meeting. The Guardians are asking for our help, she explained to the team. But we don't know why or what kind of danger they're talking about. Dr. Han studied the latest data from the wormhole. There's something else, she said. I'm detecting what seems to be a distress signal coming through the wormhole. It's faint, but it's there. Engineer Park ran some quick calculations. The quantum shield on our prototype ship, Prometheus, should be strong enough now for a closer look. We could send a manned mission to investigate. Commander Kim looked at her team. The decision she had to make would affect not just their mission, but potentially the entire human race. They had proven they could communicate with the Guardians, but now they faced a choice: stay safely on Earth or venture into the unknown to help an ancient civilization that had reached out to them. Prepare Prometheus for launch, Commander Kim finally ordered. We need to find out what's wrong with the network and what kind of danger we might all be facing. As the team rushed to prepare for their first manned mission through the wormhole, they couldn't help but wonder, what would they find on the other side? And were they ready for it? The Prometheus stood ready in its launch bay, its silver hull gleaming under the bright lights. Commander Kim Yoo-jin walked around the ship one last time, checking every detail. This mission would take them farther than any human had ever gone before. The crew for this historic journey had been carefully chosen. Besides Commander Kim, there was Dr. Han Ji-woo as the science officer, Engineer Park Min-ho to manage the quantum shield, and quantum navigation specialist Cho Aira, who had joined the team specifically for this mission. All systems are ready, Park reported as they completed their final checks. The quantum shield is stronger than in any of our tests. Dr. Han looked up from her station in the ship. The Guardian sent another message, she said. They've provided coordinates for a safe passage through the wormhole. They say they'll try to help stabilize it as we pass through. Commander Kim gathered her crew for one final briefing. Once we enter the wormhole, we'll be on our own, she explained. We don't know exactly what we'll find on the other side, but we know someone needs our help. Cho Aira spoke up. I studied the Guardian's navigation data. The wormhole should create a stable corridor for us, like a tunnel through space. But if anything changes, I'll need to adjust our course quickly. The launch countdown began. On Earth, millions of people watched through live broadcasts as Prometheus prepared for its historic journey. Dr. Lee Do-hyun managed mission control, keeping in constant contact with the ship. Quantum shield activated, Park announced as they lifted off. The familiar shimmer of the shield surrounded the ship, pulsing in sync with the wormhole's frequency. As they approached the wormhole, they could see it clearly for the first time. It looked like a perfect circle of darkness in space, with a faint blue glow around its edges. Dr. Hand's instruments recorded everything, sending data back to Earth. "Something's different," Park said suddenly, checking his readings. "The shield is responding differently than in our simulations. The energy levels are much higher." Commander Kim turned to him. "Can the shield handle it?" "Yes, but we need to adjust the frequency." Park's fingers moved quickly over his controls. "Dr. Han, I need your help to match these new patterns." Dr. Han joined him at his station. Together, they worked to tune the shield, using the mathematical language they had learned from the Guardians. The ship shuddered slightly as they made each adjustment. "We're entering the wormhole's outer field now," Cho-Era reported. "Gravitational forces are increasing." Through the ship's windows, they could see space beginning to bend around them. The stars seemed to stretch into long lines of light. The wormhole grew larger and larger in their view. "Shield is stable," Park announced, "but we're using more power than expected." Commander Kim made her decision. "We proceed as planned. Cho-Era, take us in." The Prometheus moved forward, crossing the threshold between normal space and the wormhole. The moment they entered, everything changed. The inside of the wormhole was nothing like they had imagined. Streams of blue and purple energy flowed around them like rivers of light. The ship's sensors showed they were moving faster than should be possible, yet everything felt perfectly still inside. "This is incredible," Dr. Han whispered, recording everything. "The physics here, it's like nothing we've ever seen." Suddenly, their sensors detected something ahead of them in the wormhole, a signal growing stronger as they approached. The distress call they had detected from Earth was much clearer now. "Something's wrong," Cho-Era said, her voice tense. "The wormhole's structure is shifting. We need to adjust our course." As the Prometheus traveled deeper into the unknown, its crew faced their greatest challenge yet. They had prepared for every possibility they could think of, but the reality of traveling through a wormhole was proving far more complex than anyone had imagined. Inside the wormhole, time seemed to move differently. The crew of the Prometheus couldn't tell if they had been traveling for minutes or hours. The streams of colored light continued to flow around their ship as they moved through this strange corridor in space. Quantum navigation specialist Cho-Era kept her eyes fixed on her instruments. The wormhole's structure had become increasingly unstable, requiring constant course adjustments. Her training had prepared her for normal spaceflight, but this was entirely different. "The gravitational forces are changing again," she reported to Commander Kim. "I need to adjust our path." Cho's fingers moved quickly over her controls as she guided the ship through the shifting currents of the wormhole. Her natural instincts for space navigation were proving more valuable than any computer calculations. "Energy levels are rising," Engineer Park Min-ho called out from his station. "The shield is holding, but something's happening ahead of us." Dr. Han Ji-woo studied her readings carefully. "The wormhole is starting to curve. I think we're approaching the exit point." Suddenly, the flowing lights around them began to pulse more intensely. The ship's sensors detected a massive surge of energy building up in front of them. "Everyone, prepare for emergence," Commander Kim ordered. "Cho, maintain our current course. Park, divert all available power to the shields." The energy surge grew stronger, and then, in an instant, everything changed. The streams of light vanished, replaced by the familiar sight of stars. The Prometheus had emerged from the wormhole. "We made it," Dr. Han said quietly, checking their position. "According to these readings, we're over 50 light-years from Earth." But they weren't alone. As their eyes adjusted to the normal space around them, they saw something that made them all fall silent. Floating in space before them was an enormous structure, clearly artificial in nature. "It's a station," Commander Kim said, studying the massive object through the ship's front viewport. The structure was shaped like a wheel, with spokes extending from a central hub. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns that glowed with a soft blue light. "It matches the design patterns we saw in the Guardian's messages," Dr. Han observed. "This must be one of their waypoint stations." Park checked his instruments. "The station is generating some kind of energy field, but it's very weak. And look, there are no lights in most sections. It seems empty." Commander Kim made a decision. "Cho, take us closer. Slow approach. Park, scan for any signs of danger." As they moved toward the station, they could see more details. Parts of the structure showed signs of age, with some sections looking worn or damaged. But the central hub still maintained its soft glow. "I'm detecting an entry port," Cho reported. "It looks like it was designed for ships to dock." Dr. Han studied the station's energy readings. "The technology here is incredible. Even in this apparently dormant state, it's more advanced than anything we've ever seen." "I'm picking up something else," Park added. "There's a faint power signature coming from inside the station. And yes, that's definitely where the distress signal is coming from." Commander Kim looked at her crew. They had successfully traveled through a wormhole, something no human had ever done before. Now they faced another challenge: exploring this ancient Guardian facility. "Prepare for docking procedures," she ordered. "We came here to help, and the answers we need are inside that station." As the Prometheus carefully approached the docking port, the crew couldn't help but wonder what they would find inside. The station had clearly been built by the Guardians, but why had they abandoned it? And what had caused them to send out a distress signal that humanity had managed to hear across 50 light-years of space? The Prometheus docked smoothly with the Guardian station. The connection was perfect, as if the station had been designed with their ship in mind. Commander Kim Yoo-jin led the team through the airlock, their footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. "The air is breathable," Dr. Han Ji-woo reported, checking her instruments. "Temperature and gravity are set to levels comfortable for humans. It's almost as if they were expecting us." The corridors were wide and tall, with smooth walls that gave off a faint blue light. As they walked, lines of light followed their movement, illuminating their path forward. "The station's systems are responding to our presence," Engineer Park Min-ho observed. "It's waking up as we move through it." They followed the strongest energy readings, which led them to a large circular room in the center of the station. The walls were covered with strange symbols and patterns, similar to the ones they had seen in the Guardian's messages. "This must be their control center," Dr. Han said, approaching what looked like a control panel. The surface lit up at her touch, displaying complex patterns of light. Park joined her at the panel. "These controls are similar to the mathematical patterns we use to communicate through the wormhole. I think we can interface with their systems." Working together, Dr. Han and Park began to decode the Guardian's interface. The station's systems seemed to respond to their efforts, displaying more and more information. "I found something," Dr. Han announced after several hours of work. "It's their historical database. The Guardians built this network of wormholes thousands of years ago." Commander Kim looked at the displays of information flowing across the walls. "Can you tell why they built it?" Dr. Han's expression became serious as she read more. "According to this, they detected a massive cosmic event approaching our galaxy, something that would make space travel impossible for thousands of years. The wormhole network was meant to be an escape route, a way for civilizations to survive." "But where are the Guardians now?" Cho Era asked, speaking what everyone was thinking. Park had moved to another panel. "I think I found the answer. The Guardians tried to evacuate as many civilizations as they could, but something went wrong. The cosmic event arrived earlier than they expected. Many of the Guardians were trapped in distant parts of the network." "And the ones who were here?" Commander Kim asked. "They sacrificed themselves," Dr. Han said quietly, reading the last entries in the database. "They used all their power to keep the network stable, to give other civilizations a chance to find and use it. But without regular maintenance, the wormholes are starting to break down. The room fell silent as they processed this information. The Guardians had built this incredible network not for themselves, but to help others survive. "Look at this," Park said suddenly. "The station's computers are still running calculations, trying to find a way to stabilize the network. They've been working on this problem for thousands of years." Dr. Han moved to his panel, her eyes widening as she studied the calculations. "These equations, they're similar to the ones we used to create our quantum shield. The Guardians were trying to find a way to protect the whole network, just like we protected our ship." Commander Kim understood what this meant. "Are you saying we might have accidentally discovered what the Guardians spent thousands of years looking for?" "Not accidentally," Dr. Han replied. "The Guardians left all this information here, hoping someone would find it and understand it in a new way. They were waiting for a different perspective on the problem." The crew looked at each other, realizing the true meaning of their mission. They hadn't just found an abandoned station. They had found a challenge left behind by an ancient civilization, a test to see if humanity could help save the network they had sacrificed everything to build. Engineer Park Min-ho worked rapidly at the Guardian Station's control panel, analyzing the deterioration of the wormhole network. The data showed an alarming pattern of instability spreading throughout the system. "The network is failing faster than we thought," he reported to Commander Kim Yoo-jin. "Without maintenance, the wormholes are becoming unstable. If they collapse, they could create a chain reaction through space." Dr. Han Ji-woo studied the complex equations flowing across her screen. The Guardian's original stabilization method required enormous amounts of energy, she explained. They had to maintain each wormhole individually. But our quantum shield technology works differently. Commander Kim moved closer to examine their findings. "How is our method different?" "The Guardians tried to force stability from the outside," Dr. Han said. "Our shield works by creating harmony with the natural quantum state of space. It's more efficient, but we've never tested it on this scale." Cho Aira, who had been analyzing the network's navigation data, spoke up. "According to these readings, we have less than 48 hours before the first major wormhole collapse. Once that happens, the others will follow quickly." Commander Kim gathered her crew around the central display. The holographic map showed the entire network of wormholes, with several points flashing red to indicate critical instability. "Dr. Han, could we modify our shield technology to stabilize the entire network?" the commander asked. Dr. Han nodded slowly. "Theoretically, yes. The station's systems are compatible with our technology, but we would need to create a quantum resonance field strong enough to reach every wormhole in the network. One mistake in the calculations could make things worse. The power requirements would be enormous," Park added. "We would need to channel energy from multiple wormholes simultaneously. It's never been done before." The station's lights flickered, as if emphasizing the urgency of their situation. The crew could feel the weight of their decision. They had the potential to save the network, but failure could accelerate its collapse. Commander Kim stood in silence for a moment, considering their options. The fate of the Guardian's legacy, and possibly many civilizations, rested on their next actions. "We proceed with the stabilization attempt," she finally declared. "Dr. Han, work with Park to modify the station's systems. Cho, calculate the optimal position for generating the resonance field." The next several hours were intense. Park and Dr. Han integrated their shield technology with the Guardian systems, while Cho plotted the precise calculations needed to reach every wormhole in the network. "The modifications are ready," Park announced. "But we'll only get one chance at this. The power surge will be massive." Dr. Han reviewed their work one final time. The quantum resonance should spread through the network like ripples in a pond. Each stabilized wormhole will help strengthen the others. Warning: the station's computer system suddenly announced. Critical instability detected in primary node. Collapse imminent. Commander Kim looked at her crew, They had come 50 light-years from Earth and discovered more than they had ever imagined. Now they faced their greatest challenge. "Begin the stabilization sequence," she ordered. "Humanity will not let the Guardian's sacrifice be in vain." The station hummed with power as they initiated their plan. Energy from multiple wormholes began flowing into the station's systems, guided by their modified quantum shield technology. The fate of the network and the legacy of two civilizations hung in the balance. The Guardian station vibrated with unprecedented levels of energy as the crew of the Prometheus initiated their stabilization plan. Engineer Park Min-ho monitored the power levels carefully, his hand steady on the controls despite the increasing tension. "Quantum resonance field at 60% capacity," he reported. "The station is channeling energy from all active wormholes in the network." Dr. Han Jiwoo worked quickly at her station, adjusting the mathematical sequences that controlled the quantum shield modification. "The first wave of stabilization energy is ready to deploy," she announced. "Commander, we await your order." Commander Kim Yoo-jin stood at the central control platform, watching as the holographic display showed the network's deteriorating condition. Multiple wormholes now flashed red, indicating imminent collapse. "Deploy the resonance field," Commander Kim ordered. "Cho, prepare for network-wide navigation adjustments." Dr. Han initiated the sequence. The station released a pulse of energy that spread through the wormhole network like ripples in a pond. The effect was immediate and visible on their monitors. "First wave successful," Cho Ara reported from her station. "The quantum resonance is spreading through the network. Wormhole stability increasing in sectors 1 through 4. The success was short-lived. Suddenly, warning signals flashed across their screens. "We have unexpected feedback in the primary node," Park called out. "The energy distribution is becoming uneven." Dr. Han quickly analyzed the data. "The older wormholes are resisting the new stabilization pattern," she explained. "We need to adjust our approach." She paused, studying the complex equations before them. The Guardians were right about one thing. We need to understand space itself, not just try to control it. Commander Kim turned to her. "What do you suggest?" "Instead of forcing stability, we need to let the wormholes find their natural balance," Dr. Han said. "Our quantum shield technology doesn't fight against space-time. It works with it. We should apply the same principle to the entire network." Park understood immediately. "Like tuning musical instruments to play in harmony," he said, already modifying the controls. "Each wormhole needs to resonate with the others naturally." They adjusted their approach. Instead of pushing stability through the network, they used their technology to create a framework that allowed each wormhole to stabilize itself. The effect was remarkable. Stability levels rising across all sectors, Cho reported, her voice filled with excitement. "The wormholes are synchronizing with each other. The network is repairing itself." The holographic display showed the change as it happened. The red warning signals faded, replaced by steady blue lights indicating stable wormholes. The network was healing itself, using the pattern provided by humanity's understanding of quantum physics. The Guardians spent thousands of years trying to maintain this network through force, Dr. Han said quietly. "But sometimes the greatest strength comes from working with nature, not against it." Commander Kim smiled. "They built this amazing network. We found a way to help it sustain itself. Together, our civilizations have achieved something remarkable." As the stabilization process completed, they received a message from the station's ancient computer systems. "Network stability achieved. Guardian protocol updated. New custodians recognized." The crew looked at each other as they realized what this meant. Humanity had not just saved the wormhole network, they had been chosen to become its new guardians. Their understanding of quantum physics, combined with their ability to see problems from new angles, had proven them worthy of this responsibility. "Send a message to Earth," Commander Kim ordered. "Tell them the mission was successful, but our work is just beginning. The Guardians left us more than just a network of wormholes. They left us a legacy to preserve and improve upon. And humanity is ready for that challenge. The Prometheus crew had made history. They had traveled through a wormhole, saved an ancient network of cosmic corridors, and opened a new chapter in human exploration of the universe. As they prepared to return home, they knew they carried with them not just scientific discoveries, but a profound responsibility to continue the work the Guardians had begun so long ago.